Yeah, can we start with the first one? Thanks. Okay, so I'll present on the effect of these natural disasters on our infrastructure, mainly on the education sector, on how we are affected. So mainly there are three issues that I'll talk about. The first part is common natural disasters and high risk areas, then the negative effect on us as education, and also interventions for disaster management and mitigation. Next. So I think all Malawian colleagues are aware that over the past decades, the weather has been extreme. It wasn't as like this before. So we are experiencing a lot of floods, droughts, and also many other effects on the Malawian economy, including the education sector. So as we heard earlier from the experts, Malawi is at risk in terms of natural disaster in various places. Next. So most flood-prone areas around lakes, rivers. So our schools that are located in these areas like lakes, rivers, and also generally in the Shire Valley, we are greatly affected by especially the floods. And in areas like Karonga, in the northern part of Malawi, we are mainly affected with the earthquakes and also other parts of central region. Next. So to what extent have these disasters affected us as the education sector or as in terms of our schools? So there's a lot of damage to school infrastructure, such as classroom blocks, teachers' houses, offices, sanitation blocks, feeding shelters where we have school feeding, and even boreholes. And in addition to this, there's also a lot of damage to the teaching and learning materials. These are textbooks, exercise books, and all teaching and learning materials that are found in schools. There's disruption of teaching and learning process because most of the classrooms are used as places of refuge by the community. When this happens, it means teaching and learning is disrupted. And also, the learners are affected psychologically, and there's poor learner attendance because most of them are with their parents in the refugee, not refugee, but in these camps, which are sometimes classrooms, most of the times classrooms, and also there is increase in dropout cases when the rains are over. It's difficult to trace these learners. Next. I can give an example of the cyclones that we had, that they've caused enormous damage to school infrastructure, teaching and learning materials, as I said, and also loss of learning in affected schools. Next. Most school boreholes got contaminated because of the floods. We also had some strong winds in addition to the floods. So we have a lot of classrooms now whose roofs were blown off. We have a lot of classrooms whose walls collapsed, and some of them developed serious cracks, and it's a risk to the learners. In some areas, the pit latrine collapsed. And as I already said, the teaching and learning materials were damaged, especially in Lower Shire, where classrooms and teachers' houses were filled with mud at waist level. So we lost a lot of teaching and learning materials. Next. So after some assessment, we noted that some of the damaged infrastructure require minor repairs, while others needed major rehabilitation. In some cases, total replacement of maybe constructing new classrooms. And for those who can recall, on 25th January 2022, the ministry even issued a statement or press release informing all schools in the southern part of Malawi to suspend classes due to the cyclone. So cyclone Anna mainly. So the situation was very bad because of that. Rivers were full. Some children who cross rivers could not attend classes, and class attendance was very low that time. So as a sector, we are still recovering from that. We are still trying to rebuild damaged schools, but most of them are still in that state. So a lot of learners are learning outside or under trees because some of the classes or classrooms are damaged, and we fear for the learners' lives. That's why we just instructed the head teachers not to use the rooms until we have done some maintenance or some rehabilitation. And the ministry will produce a comprehensive disaster needs assessment report on the cyclone Anna. Next. So these are just some of the pictures showing water coming to the waist level, as I said, and some areas, the packets, the bags you see there where schools are doing school feeding. We lost infrastructure, and the bags were exposed. Some got damaged, and the other one is the latrine. You can see that big hole there. So it's dangerous. No learner can go into that type of pit latrine. So these are just some of the examples on the extent of damage that the cyclone left. Next. So what are we doing? What measures have we put in place as the ministry? So there are a number of steps that we've taken. Of course, in our national education sector investment plan, because this has now come like a routine, we've included their issues to do with natural disasters and an epidemic such as COVID-19 in order to see on how we're going to mitigate them. As I've already said, that these usually have a negative impact on teaching and learning outcomes. So we are promoting disaster risk reduction, resilience, and well-coordinated disaster response to school-based hazards. And we are saying that all construction should be resilient. The structures should be resilient school structures. We are building capacity among communities to respond to COVID and also other similar pandemics, including disasters like the cyclones. Open and distance learning. Next slide. Okay, so the ministry has just recently developed education in emergencies strategic plan 2022 to 2026. to assist the sector in coordinating efforts, response to the emergencies, and enhance disaster management and response capacity at all levels. So by doing this, we want to be as prepared as possible so that we should mitigate some of these measures. And the ministry is implementing national education curriculum that is responsive to issues of climate change and health hazards that continue to affect our country, Malawi. It has included themes of disaster risk reduction in the school curriculum to help learners to be aware. So you can see that even in terms of curriculum, we've included issues of climate change and disaster risk reduction. So this will help to raise awareness of disaster risks and the impact of climate change and mitigation measures among communities in the country. So this, we find that this is more sustainable because of the knowledge is power and it will be more sustainable. As a sector, we believe in including issues in the curriculum. And we feel that if we do so, the impact will be more effective. Thank you. Next. So in case of emergency, the ministry use local resources and fund it. We also get some funds from Department of Disaster Management Affairs, DODMA, for disaster response and recovery. I can just give an example that we are now constructing low-cost classrooms, drilling boreholes, and we've started constructing teachers' houses using money from DODMA. This is government of Malawi resources that were given to the ministry in response to COVID-19 and also disasters. So we are also, the money is also helping us to provide relief items, learning and teaching and learning materials, and repairing damaged school buildings. But because of the magnitude of the damage, the money is not adequate. So the ministry still requires a lot of resources so that we, especially in terms of infrastructure, the damage is so extensive that the money that we're given is not enough. The one I was talking about, the one we are using for construction, was mainly for COVID-19. But in terms of the cyclone, it was mainly the relief item. So of course, some partners like UNICEF and others have provided tents in some areas, but we are aware that these are just temporary. So we still need to repair the classrooms. Yeah, so for the government, sometimes we also just buy materials like iron sheets, cement, and give them to communities to do some repairs. So since the budget is not yet approved, it's still in Parliament, we'll see to what extent we can do, but we're also appealing to various partners to assist in that area. Next. So there are also a lot of logistics challenges involved when we are like transporting relief items, and also in terms of building materials from the central office to the schools. Because mostly when we are providing these materials like the iron sheets, we procure centrally. So we have all these logistical challenges. So plans are underway to improve the effectiveness of disaster preparedness and management by introducing a budget line for emergency response at all levels. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that districts through our sector also have a budget line to cater for these emergencies. We also provide school improvement grants to schools. So we are also planning that maybe if we can increase the grants if resources allow, so that there is some small component of disaster issues. So our ministry, through the Department of School Nutrition and HIV and AIDS, we are implementing a number of activities for disaster response and disaster reduction, which include development and adoption of safer schools construction guidelines. So we have safer schools construction guidelines, which we are using to construct better and resilient school structures. And we have also deployed volunteer teachers to address the psychological social needs of learners in disaster-prone areas. And also implementation of school feeding program, targeting schools in areas that are food insecure and disaster, which are also disaster-prone. So just to make, to ensure that the schools, although they are in damaged, they are still in damaged conditions, but the learners are receiving some psychosocial support, and also the communities which lost their living, their mode of living through their crops were washed away, so that at least through the schools, their learners can have some food. Next. Next, okay. So the ministry also, with support from World Food Program and Mary's Meals, we are also implementing school feeding programs in selected primary schools. These are old programs that have been running, but when we have a disaster, sometimes we do that diversion by not stopping from the other areas, but immediately we also target the schools that have been hit with the disasters. So the program is benefiting about 600,000 children in 7 districts. That's Chikwawa, Dedza, Mangochi, Palombe, Nsanje, Salima, and Zomba. And evidence shows that there is significant increase in learner attendance and reduction in dropout rates among girls and boys in the target districts. So when we are doing the school feeding is really has very good outcome or good results. Wherever we are doing this, the learner attendance is very high, which means that most children as they are learning, they are also benefiting the food that the school provides through assistance from our partners. Next. And we have a program which is not yet effective. It will run for 4 years, which is known as Malawi Education Reform Program, funded by the World Bank and the Global Partnership in Education. So through this program, we are doing a lot of construction of classrooms. So we are also promoting climate-friendly infrastructure where we are using concrete blocks, not the fire-bent blocks. And even the designs that are being used in this project, the ones that we are using, the safer schools, they are resilient. And we are building capacity of key stakeholders. These structures will be done by communities. Of course, they will be given grants, which they will use to construct. So they will build capacity so that they do according to what we need, and the structures are aligned to all disaster risks. They are resilient, let me just say. And each school will be required to have a disaster prepared plan. So we are making sure that through this project, each and every school, whether primary or secondary, they should have that plan for disaster risk management. Next. We are also promoting planting of trees. Schools already have what we call orchards, but now we are intensifying that schools should plant a lot of trees in the premises, because we've noted that these schools that are losing roofs, most of them, they don't have enough trees. So there's nothing to shield the infrastructure from strong winds. So we have intensified that. And we also want to have the learners and the teachers should have, the parents should have that culture in them, planting trees. So as I already said, this is just to prevent schools from the impact of winds and floods and other extreme weather. Next. Yeah, so thank you for listening. Those are the issues and the measures that we're taking as the ministry. Thank you very much.